Hey, it's Phil with some thoughts and questions about the week 3 discussion readings. Sticking mostly with the keywords readings just to make sure that I'm understanding all these concepts. Looking first at capitalism, a quote: "Capitalism is based on exploitation, akin to feudalism and slavery, in that it decides how to distribute the surplus labor performed by wage laborers." I can see where the comparison is being made there, but I think an important difference that I wanted to point out was that doesn't capitalism offer those that are willing to be the exploiters, those willing to exploit others? Doesn't it give them the opportunity to rise within that system, as opposed to that relationship that was being presented with slavery? It's not really something that you're going to work yourself out of. In that sense, capitalism is much different. Regarding the U.S., the last 2 centuries might be referred to as the era of widening and deepening of capitalism. But in my opinion, hasn't there been recently a big conscious effort to reduce the amount of exploitation that is involved with that? Does this really reflect perhaps an evolution of what capitalism is or can be, or is it really, are we completely moving away from capitalism? And is there a call to find a completely different way of living? Each moment of capitalism, from the existence of commodity exchange to the export of capital, is simultaneously economic and culture. So my question is, what happens when the commodity exchange becomes the primary focus, right? So each moment of capitalism, of commodity exchange to the export of capital, is simultaneously economic and cultural. But if the focus is that commodity exchange, how does the economic implications of that then become culture, or is it really both, or does all of a sudden the economic aspect of that really become the culture? Okay, moving on to class. I had written, closely related to categories as station, status, group, and kind, class resonates with implications of value, quality, respectability, and religious virtue. I wanted to highlight this, at least maybe even for myself, because I wanted to make sure that I really understood. But my question came, why then do we assume that successful capitalists are of a higher class when they obviously are willing to compromise some of that integrity, some of those implications of value and quality and respectability, of religious virtue? If you're ultimately a successful capitalist or member of a capitalist society, aren't you probably going to be maybe placing a lower emphasis on these values, on these respectability, in order to stay one step ahead of somebody else and become more successful? Interesting. And finally, coming to economy, it's used to be understood as a way of exercising power, and is understood now as an object of power and knowledge. So I found this to be a fascinating concept, right? So the economy used to be a tool and is now more like proof of a culture that has power and knowledge. So having a robust economy is directly related to the level of power and knowledge a group of people might have, right? Okay, the new object of economics was constructed out of not only numerical quantifications, but the entire process of branding, product development, information production, and image making that formed both the possibility of the modern economy and the increasing possibility of its representation. I found this like we were just drawing a line and connecting this thought with the United States itself. I mean, isn't the United States just a giant example of marketing and product development and branding? Think about all the times that we've heard us refer to ourselves as members of the United States, right, or citizens, that we come from the best country in the world. The cultural focus that Americans have on image and material things, in the American dream itself, right, like the nuclear family and owning property and a home and having things, and it's a marketing scheme in itself, right? So we're selling a brand and we're reinforcing it ourselves. Really interesting stuff that I found in the keywords on capitalism, class, and economy. Thanks. I'm looking forward to an even bigger discussion this week.